Hey guys, Mike here. In this video, I'm going to try and determine what the best stat is, and I'm going to do it a little differently from most people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each class one by one, just all of the major classes, no special classes, personal classes that, the princes and the princesses have. I'm just going to go by the basic classes, and then what I'm going to do is assign primary stat that that class needs or most desires, and I'm going to also select a secondary stat that that class needs, just after the primary stat. And so I'm going to give the primary stat, whoever wins that spot for that class will get 1.5 points, and whoever wins the second spot will get 1 point. Now for the second spot, you can share, right? So if there's two stats that equally want or win that second place slot, then we're going to split that 1 point value into 0.5 and 0.5. So it's a total of 2.5 points for every class. And I actually don't know how this is going to turn out because I didn't do this ahead of time. So we're going to find out together which stat is the best. And whichever stat has the most points at the end of this little game will say it's the best stat. Another thing too is I'm going to group strength magic into one stat because that's like the attack stat, and then defense res into one stat as well. All right, so let's get right into it. So the first one is Paladin. Paladin, I think the number one stat it needs is strength. So that's 1 point for strength, actually 1.5, right? So I'm going to use like a dot for 0.5. I think for its secondary stat, it needs equally speed and defense. So half a point for speed and half a point for defense. All right, next is Wolf Knight. Wolf Knight needs strength and speed, but its primary stat is strength. So it gets 1.5 for strength. So we have strength magic at 3 and 1.5 for speed. All right, next is Martial Monk. Martial Monk actually needs strength and magic equally. So this is a bit interesting. Because strength and magic I'm grouping together, we'll just give it 1.5 for strength magic anyways. And then its secondary stat it needs is speed. So we have 1.5 for strength magic and 1 point for speed. Alright, next is High Priest. High Priest needs magic. So that's 1.5 for magic. And its secondary stat, that's an interesting one. It's either speed or res. I'm actually going to give it, it does need res. Because it's one of the best classes for res tanking. I mean, there are others, but the reason why I would see people not giving it res and giving it speed instead, just a full blown point to speed, is because they're taking res for granted. Because the High Priest is getting res, and they don't realize how useful it is until they actually need it. So you're actually taking it for granted when you don't give credit to the res stat for High Priest. So I would have to split that between speed and res. So we have 1.5 for magic, so that brings this up to 2, and we have 1 point or half a point for speed and half a point for defense res. All right. Next is Mage. All right, Mage and Sage. So Sage obviously needs magic, so that's 1.5 for magic, and it's actually not speed. It needs res because it doesn't have any growth in speed. So you're actually hurting yourself. You actually don't need speed, and it's actually not a good candidate for getting speed. And yes, while speed will make it better, you're relying on the unit's personal speed growths to actually get speed. And if you're really relying on that, you might actually just fall behind unless you're insanely lucky with level up. So, I will give it speed. It does benefit from speed, so I will split the second place point between speed and res. You know what? Actually, on hindsight, the Mage actually wouldn't say it needs speed. It needs dex more because the issue with homes is the hit rates are actually not like super reliable. I found, you have to use you probably have to use an emblem to patch up hit rates on homes, especially for like Doron, even Boganon. So, I kind of want to give that second place point to dex. So what I'll do is actually split it between dex and speed. A mage definitely needs dex. So half point for dex, half point for speed, and 1.5 points for strength magic. All right, next is Masonite. This is a pretty easy one. I would give it priority stat is magic and secondary stat is speed. So 1.5 for strength magic. That brings this up to plus 2 points. And 1 point for speed. Alright, next is the hero. Hero needs strength. Hero desperately needs strength. And then I'll give that second place point to speed. 1.5 for strength and 1 point for speed. Alright, next is Swordmaster. Swordmaster needs, I would say, dex and speed. Does need strength. I would actually kind of want to split that first place point to strength. I mean, it does need strength. You know what? I will actually give it to speed. Just strength and speed. But I give first place point to strength, actually. That's 2 points for strength, or 1.5 points for strength, and 1 point for speed. Alright, next is Halberdier. Halberdier needs strength. And I actually don't think they even need speed. Let's check the growth rates real quick. So interesting, the Halberdier is actually split between speed and defense. And that actually makes sense. I remember Halberdiers being actually more tankier than other units. So I actually give that a tie to speed and defense. So 1.5 points for strength magic, and I'll share a point here with half speed and half for defense reps. Alright, next is Royal Knight. Royal Knight needs magic. I'll give Royal Knight 1.5 to magic and 1 to speed. I'll give the second place point to speed. Yeah, 1 point to speed. Alright, next is Berserker. Alright, Berserker, I would actually give that to primary stat strength and secondary stat HP. Alright, next is Warrior. Warrior, Warrior, I would actually probably give the primary stat to strength, so 1.5 for strength. And I'm actually going to split it between dex and speed. I mean, Warrior, you kind of need to patch up the hit rates, especially if you're going with bows on the Warrior. I mean, you could use bow focus. You could give that point to speed. I'm actually going to share it between dex and speed for Warrior. Alright, next is Sniper. Sniper needs strength and dex, actually. Does not need speed, because the Sniper is going for criticals as a crit Fisher roll. Alright, next is Bow Knight. Bow Knight, I actually don't know, because I actually haven't used Bow Knights that much. Again, you know, because it is a Knight class, I would give the first place point to strength, and because, you know, I don't know, I'll probably give it to speed for the second place point. Alright, the next is Griffin Knight. Griffin Knight, I would actually give it, this is interesting. Griffin Knight, it's kind of a hybrid class. I'll actually give the primary point to speed, and I'll give the secondary point to strength. 1.5 points for speed and 1 point for strength. Alright, next is Wyvern Knight. Alright, Wyvern Knight is the less speedy flyer and actually has pretty high defense but low res. So I'm going to give a point to primarily strength first, of course. Gotta give it to strength. The 1.5 point goes to strength, and then 1 point goes to defense. Alright, next is General. General is actually point. The primary point it needs is defense, and then its secondary point goes to strength. That's a very easy one. I play General all the time. Anyone who says a General needs some speed or can benefit from speed does not know what they're talking about with General. General does not need speed, does not want speed, does not care for speed. Take your speed and, you know, give it to your Swordmaster. Alright, Great Knight. Great Knight, believe it or not, has no growths in speed and does not want speed. It wants defense. But I would say a Great Knight needs strength first and then defense second. So it's kind of like a general but switched. So we have 1.5 to strength magic and 1 point to defense. All right, next is Thief. Thief, actually the primary point it needs is strength. It's not speed, believe it or not. I would give the second place point to speed, but the reason it needs strength is because the might on daggers is so low, and you really need that strength to keep its attack power up, because if you don't do damage to the enemy, you're not poisoning them. And that's the one thing you at least want to do with Thief is poison them. So I would actually give the first place point to strength, and then the second place point to speed. Alright, I'm not going to include Enchanter and Mage Cannoneer because that's not in the base game. Alright, so you can see here's the total tally for the points, and you can see like the strength magic actually more than doubles the speed. Let's see, let's try count it. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 12. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, actually more than doubles the speed. And because this is 28.5, you know, if you divide that by 2, that's more than 12, right? 28.5, that's 14. So, you know, even if you gave it split between strength and magic, like 14 to strength and 14 to magic, then that still beats the 12 points that speed got. And I actually wouldn't even split it that way. I would actually split it more biased towards strength, because there's only three magic classes in the game, which is Sage, High Priest, and Mage Knight, right? So I would, I would actually give more than 14 points of strength, maybe like 17 or even 20 points of strength, because a lot of the classes need strength. So you could argue, like, if you just wanted to pick one strength of magic, it's actually strength that is most important, not even magic. And those beat speed by quite a margin. And then Dex, some classes do need Dex. I would say Sniper needs Dex the most. You could make an argument for the Swordsman needing Dex somewhat, because if you're trying to build a Swordsman as a critical fisher, then Swordsman definitely needs that. And then we have some constellation points for defense res, because the tank units, General and Great Knight, snag some points for defense. They do need defense. They actually don't need speed. They don't care about speed. Anyone who says General or Great Knight should get speed, no, they don't need speed. You're just making it harder on yourself, trying to build them as a speedster. Yeah, this list looks pretty accurate, and like I said, I didn't actually, try to cheat and do this tally before I did this video. This is live. I'm doing it right now, and I think it's pretty revealing. So, anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.